Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard. Thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, the hazards map here from the National Weather Service is a quiet one on Friday morning, and that's because we've got a relatively quiet pattern for the next few days at least across the Midwest, dealing with some winter weather with winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories across the Northeast. But in the central Corn Belt, the central United States, I should say, our story has been the flooding in parts of the Midwest and the Central Plains. Situation is slowly beginning to improve across Nebraska, which is, what's been making the headlines here. But now we got to start talking about the upper Midwest, the Mississippi Valley here as we get into the next couple of weeks. We're looking at the Mississippi River at Illinois City here, and this is, an area where we're still on the rise right now. And then we can look up north across parts of Minnesota, the Minnesota River, for example, just now beginning to rise as well. We're not expecting any widespread, serious flooding at this point for the next 3 to 5 days across the upper Midwest. But we're going to begin melting some snow here as we get periodic warm-ups across the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And right now we've got ideal melting conditions where we're just kind of warming up during the day, freezing again at night. But as we get into the next week or two, it looks like we'll see, perhaps some more prolonged warmth. The sun angle is getting a bit higher, and we're going to start to melt some of the snow. The best case scenario would be to do that without any major storm systems coming through, but unfortunately, it does look like we'll be looking at possibly a return to an active pattern towards the end of next week. So as we watch the situation begin to kind of improve across the Missouri Valley there, across Nebraska and, western parts of Iowa, I think we're going to begin talking about the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then the Mississippi River there between Iowa and Illinois. So just potentially, talking about the same thing over the next week or two, but maybe in a different area. And again, here's the snow melt forecast from the European model showing that, we're not going to dramatically melt all of this in a couple of days. There's a lot of snow on the ground in these areas, but with periodic warm-ups, we're going to start putting a dent in that, and that snow is going to then melt and run off into the rivers. So we're watching it, we're monitoring it, and it's something we're well aware of, the threat here over the next week or two. But who sees it the worst, and when this actually gets underway is something we're going to have to just kind of watch together over the next few days to the next week. Now we'll start talking about what's going on right now with the overall weather pattern. We see the big nor'easter over the northeast, and then over the southwestern U.S. here we see the next weather maker, or the next storm system that's going to bring some rain to parts of the Corn Belt during the back half of the weekend. We can take a look at that here with the high-resolution NAMS precipitation type forecast. Again, we're watching this storm system beginning to develop over the desert southwest right now. We get in through the day Friday, Saturday night, now Saturday night, and then Sunday now this thing is beginning to move over the eastern Corn Belt. We'll do this one more time here, stepping through kind of bit by bit. This is Saturday morning as we wake up to start the weekend. We got some light rain falling across parts of Nebraska and Kansas, stretching down into Oklahoma. We can play this out here. Of course, the best case scenario would be no rain across Nebraska and Iowa, but at the very least, it looks like this is going to be light and scattered rain that hopefully should not exacerbate things too much. But again, of course, we'd prefer it just to be dry in these areas. But in an active pattern, this is, again, at least it's not too bad is how we can look at this thing. We get into Saturday evening, and now Sunday overnight, we're starting to see some of these rain showers move into parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, stretching down across the Mid-South here. Tennessee and Kentucky getting in on some of that light rain activity. Going through the day on Sunday, then, this begins to move off to the east. By the time we get to Sunday afternoon, just seeing, again, light rain showers from Iowa across parts of Illinois, Indiana, and moving into Ohio. No extremely heavy rain expected with this thing. Again, some light, isolated rain showers moving through the area Saturday and Sunday. So we can take a look at here. I want to actually look at the 500 millibar heights here. So I'm going to go out of order. What we're seeing here is just, again, I'm getting asked, when's spring going to set in? We're here in central Illinois where it's been kind of up and down. And I just want to say, we're in it. We're in spring. We're just in a kind of an active pattern where we're not seeing prolonged warm-ups, we're not seeing prolonged very warm conditions, but we're not seeing prolonged extremely cold conditions either. We're kind of on this roller coaster about where we should be right now, but just seeing periodic warm-ups of a few days in, the central and the eastern Corn Belt, and then a cool down, and then, a few days of stormy weather. So we'll look at the overall pattern here for about the next week. We're seeing this subtle ridge kind of slide in here over the weekend. That's what's bringing a slow, or at least a short-lived warm-up across parts of the central and the eastern Corn Belt. But then we're watching this storm system, this upper level wave here coming in through the weekend. That's going to move through, bringing the rain and the cool down again to start the week. But then we'll watch what follows here. This storm system gets out, and we see another ridge build in next week. And that means another period of warmer weather creeping into at least the central and the eastern Corn Belt, but certainly seeing again that warm up reach into parts of the upper Midwest. That's where we're going to melt some of that snow. But then you look off to the west, we've got the next storm system in the line, and that's likely going to bring some unsettled weather, another ripple to the flow here across the Corn Belt late next week, getting close to the weekend. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. Now we can take a look at we're looking at surface pressure here, so we can track the development of the low pressure here this weekend. I'm going to go through a little bit slower on this one, just so we can kind of watch each feature. This is our weekend storm, the one that's bringing the light rain to parts of the central and the eastern Corn Belt from Nebraska, Kansas, east over the weekend. So we're on Sunday right now. We track this thing off to the east. We see high pressure slide back in. That's going to bring another period of quiet weather mid next week and a little bit of a warm up as we get some southerly flow to return there. But then we get towards the end of the week, Thursday into Friday. We see our next area of low pressure developing here over the central Corn Belt, and that's going to, again, bring another cool down, another period of active weather, some more rain to the area, maybe some snow for some folks. But then we get into, we're looking way out there now, next weekend, high pressure slides back in. So we're just in this active pattern where, every 2 to 3 days, you're going to get one or the other here. A little warm up for a couple days, another storm system comes through, and then another cool down for a few days. So then let's take one more look here at our temperature anomalies. This is going to be a busy map again because it's just an active pattern, but focus in wherever it is that you want to look. As we get through the next few days, I'll just step through this again. It's going to be a little bit easier for us. We warm up over the central and the eastern Corn Belt here over the weekend. That storm system moves through, brings another cool down for much of us here early next week. We begin to move into midweek. By the time we get to the end of the week, we're seeing those warmer temperatures again overspreading much of the Corn Belt. Cooler temperatures follow, though, with the arrival of that next storm system as we get into next weekend. But with the volatile pattern is a hard to predict pattern too. So I'm trying to just kind of show you the overall pattern, but I don't want you to hone in on specifics here when we're talking about next week. Now, snowfall forecast. I got asked here about the snow forecast in Minnesota. We've got a lot of snow to melt up there. Are we going to get any more falling? We can take a look at the European model right now, the ensemble forecast, and we're looking at the probability of over 1 inch of snowfall, over 1 inch of snow accumulation here. And we're taking this out all the way to through next weekend. And right now, we have a winter storm right now occurring over the Northeast. That's what we're seeing there. But if we focus in on the Corn Belt and then specifically the upper Midwest, we're seeing low probabilities, and we're talking about 1 inch of snow here. So certainly this one that's going through over the weekend, not looking to produce snow across the area. Perhaps some light snow falling through the week, and then the storm system we're watching next weekend, we'll talk about that one a little bit more specifically as we get into next week. It does have the potential to bring some snow through here, so we're looking at low probabilities, and that's because where the snow tracks with that storm system late next week is quite uncertain. So right now I gotta say it looks pretty good. Someone's probably gonna get some snow here in the upper Midwest, parts of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or the Dakotas as we get to late next week. But overall, the snow pattern looks pretty good. It's not one that's going to be supportive of repeated heavy snowfall events in the area. So we should be mostly melting there, but it's likely someone's going to get a little bit of snow at the end of next week. Precipitation forecast here, just getting us through the weekend again, talking about this system Saturday and Sunday, looking at about 1/2 inch or less in spotty places from Nebraska and Kansas across Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and again, parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. Over the upper Midwest, good news there, not seeing any rain as we go through the weekend. If I take this out all the way to the end of next week, which may be irresponsible here again, talking about the uncertainty with our storm system late next week, but that's where we see the potential for another swath of precipitation again across Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, could be across the Dakotas. Again, we don't know where this is going to track, but I just want to let you know. This one, Saturday and Sunday this weekend, not looking to produce any really heavy precipitation that has me concerned, but we need to watch this one late next week, again Thursday and Friday across parts of the upper Midwest for the potential for another round of heavy precipitation. Again, possibly seeing some snow with that one. So we can look at temperatures here as we go through the week. seeing the volatile pattern again. The area that's going to see the most roller coaster here is going to be across the central and the eastern Corn Belt, where we really tap into some of those warm-ups. Our high temperature forecast here for Friday, we've got 60s creeping into the central plains there. That begins to cool off as we go through the weekend. Again, this storm system moves through Saturday, Sunday. Monday, we are at our coolest here across the central and the eastern Corn Belt before we begin our next warm-up. Starting on Tuesday now, we're seeing those 60s creep back up into the central plains. Getting into Wednesday, those are a bit more widespread. And I got one more in there for you. Thursday, warming all the way back up into the 60s, getting possibly as far north as Iowa, maybe parts of southern Wisconsin there. But remember, why is that? Well, we've got another storm system coming in late next week, and that is bringing in that warm southerly flow in advance of that. But that's going to mean more rain across parts of the Midwest. That's going to mean a cool down on the back side of that. So the warm-up is temporary, and it comes at the expense of what will likely be some more precipitation in areas that do not need it, again, late next week. If you haven't done it already, I'm going to keep plugging this. Go to my.nutrienagsolutions.com. Set up an account there. You just need your email address and a password. That's going to get you access to the Weather Story platform. You click that button there, and that's where you're going to see all this content that Eric Snodgrass are putting out as we go into the spring. You know, we've got new content coming out every day. I want to make sure that you're staying in the loop as we talk about the flood risk. As we get into the spring, you know, possibly talking about severe weather with some of these storm systems. I want to make sure that you're not missing out on anything. So set up an account and be checking back every day. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Monday morning ag forecast, and I'll have another regional forecast for you on Tuesday morning. That's where we can really dive back into what we're looking at for the end of next week. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend.